It seems as though without fail, there is always somebody on YouTube claiming that silver is just about to explode in price, despite the fact that it hasn't done so in nearly 15 years. And whenever silver does seem to go up a lot, there's a lot going on economically that causes the price to go up so rapidly. You don't really just see silver explode out of nowhere, and you don't necessarily want to have the wrong perspective coming into silver because that's just going to lead to you probably being disappointed with your investment and then maybe selling at a loss or barely breaking even and just moving on without getting any value out of your time or money spent. That's not what you want with any investment, and silver is certainly no stranger because I know a lot of people out there do understand the idea that silver is more of a hedge against inflation when you time your purchases correctly and buy when silver is low. But there's always going to be these videos that influence new people into buying silver under the premise that it's about to explode. It's just about to hit $50 an ounce. And that's something that I really think we want to try and prevent happening as a community because, of course, that is just harmful to people who actually get into silver under that idea. And it's harmful to the image of silver investing as a whole. And of course, I'm far from any sort of expert sitting here in a room recording a small pile of silver on the floor. Not even a pile, but rather just a little spread. But I do think that it's important to note that looking at just any sort of price trends kind of tell you the full picture that silver is not the most volatile asset in the world and it doesn't have the most room to gain or lose, especially in a short time if that's what you're looking for. So people claiming that silver is going to explode in like the next year are thinking in the wrong terms in my opinion already, just because silver is not really even like a year-long investment in most cases. If you want to see its full potential, you're going to be looking at several years. Now, don't get me wrong, if you know a lot about the economy and you think that there's something about to happen and you know more than me, then by all means don't, bother wasting your time taking advice from someone who doesn't understand things as well as you. But I'm just speaking from a general sense and from just looking at silver prices for around the last 10 years or so, just from my own interest and from having invested in silver from a young age and following those trends and seeing every year that people did continue to make these claims that I actually believed as a child that silver was going to hit $50. I believed that by the year 2020, silver would be over $50. I believed things of that nature back then. And having seen what actually happened and just being where I am now as far as watching silver continue to be very predictable and continue to rise in price only when you see more inflation hitting and when you see certain economic variables at play, as opposed to it getting to have this rapid explosion that people seem to think it's on the brink of constantly. That just really has told me that you have to be realistic about silver and that you always want to look at it as a hedge against inflation first. And even then, if you buy it at the wrong times, if you buy when silver is, let's say, like if you were to have bought when it was almost $50 back in March of 2011, that seemed like a great time to buy, I'm sure, because silver had just increased so much. But you would have never seen that price ever since then if you bought at that time, because unfortunately, silver has just been on the decline since then. And it's gone up and down, but from that point, directly, it has been on the decline because it's never gotten back to that point. It's never been able to achieve even close to that point, especially when you start to think about inflation. Because in the last few years, inflation has gotten a lot worse. And I think that's a big thing that's contributed to the price of silver going up. You think about the price of groceries going up, the purchasing power of your dollar's gone down a little bit. So that, of course, does contribute to the price of all assets and just all things on earth going up in relation to that. And that is something to consider as well. Even if silver is at a stronger point right now than it was a few years ago, it doesn't mean that a few years before that or a few years before that, it wasn't at an even higher point. I remember back in 2014 when silver was doing well, and it took, I mean, I think 5 or 6 years just to ever see like close to that price again if you had bought back in 2014 at those highs. So it's just something to very much consider when you're buying silver, especially if you're under the belief that you're going to make a bunch of money quickly. I've seen it to happen to somebody who I knew and cared about personally. They ended up having to sell for a loss a year later, and they're irresponsible financially. I'm not saying that's going to be you, but what I am saying is that silver is just something to be treated as a hedge against inflation, like I've reiterated a million points, and it's just not to be believed that silver is about to explode in price unless you have some sort of knowledge of the economy that goes beyond what the average person understands. you're not going to be able to just speculate that silver is about to explode. It's like trying to guess which crypto is about to be pumped the next day. It's just not possible to do, unfortunately. So with that being said, I really appreciate you watching this video. Also, huge thank you for all of the success on my first ever video I posted. That's been getting like 1,000 views a day now from browse features. So I'm gonna really try to keep on uploading content if you guys want to see the things that I cover on here, because I certainly like talking about silver and all that, and I know a bunch of you have clicked off by now. So if you watched all the way to the end, leave me a comment saying that you did, because I really appreciate it. Peace.